The street was alive with the restless rhythm of the city. Horns blaring, footsteps shuffling, voices rising and fading into the urban symphony. And there, standing in the middle of all that noise, was a man who had never wanted to be seen. His clothes were tattered, a dull gray hoodie stained by rain and time, shoes that looked like they walked 1,000 hard miles, and eyes that carried storms too heavy for words. This man was nobody to the world, just another shadow blending into the alleyways. But today his shadow would collide with the blinding light of someone who thought himself untouchable. Across the street, stepping out of a gleaming black Rolls Royce, was a man the world couldn't ignore. Billionaire industrialist Richard Harrington. Silver hair slicked back to perfection, navy blue tailored suit cut sharp enough to slice through envy, gold cufflinks gleaming like trophies. Every movement screamed money, power, arrogance. He didn't walk, he commanded space. And then it happened. The beggar raised a trembling hand, his voice barely rising above the roar of traffic. "Sir, spare some change?" People stopped, not because the words were unusual. Beggars asked for change every day, but because of who was being asked. A man so rich, his name was whispered in business schools, his face plastered across magazines. Richard Harrington, being asked for pennies. The billionaire froze, his cold blue eyes narrowing. Then, with lips pressed in and voice dripping with disdain, he snapped, "Don't touch me. Don't look at me. You people always begging, always taking. Do you have any idea who I am?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. Phones came out, recording. The beggar flinched, but didn't lower his hand. His deep brown eyes, wounded yet unbroken, held Richard's gaze with quiet strength. And then, slowly, he pulled something from his hoodie pocket. It wasn't money. It wasn't food. It was a photo, a single, crumpled photograph. Richard's eyes landed on it, and in an instant his world tilted. The color drained from his face. His chest heaved. His legs trembled as if the ground had betrayed him. And then the billionaire collapsed. Right there, on the dirty concrete, in front of everyone. Phones kept recording. Voices shouted. But the question echoed louder than all of it. What was in that photo? The billionaire lay sprawled on the pavement, gasping for breath. His expensive suit was now smeared with dust, his gold cufflinks flashing under the city lights like ironic reminders of power that meant nothing in this moment. Crowds swarmed. Some whispered, others laughed, and many just kept recording. To them, this was viral gold. A billionaire brought down not by stocks, not by scandal, but by a beggar. But to Richard Harrington, this was not a fall of the body. This was a fall of the soul. Because in that beggar's trembling hand was a photograph Richard had not seen in decades, one he thought had been buried forever. It showed two young boys, one white, one black, both no older than 10, both sitting on a dusty wooden porch, their arms wrapped around each other like brothers who had promised to never let go. Richard knew that porch. He knew that smile, and he knew the boy beside him, Marcus. Richard croaked, his voice cracking like old glass. The beggar's lips trembled. He didn't deny it. He simply whispered back, "You left me." The crowd didn't understand, but Richard did, and that was enough to rip open every wall he had built around himself. Because Marcus wasn't just some beggar on the street. He was Richard's childhood friend, the boy who had shared his food when Richard's own father drank away their meals, the boy who had shielded him from bullies, the boy who had saved him more than once. And yet, when the chance came to climb the ladder of wealth and power, Richard hadn't just let go of Marcus. He had stepped on him to rise higher. Now, here Marcus was, standing in rags while Richard stood in silk, a mirror of betrayal. The billionaire pressed his shaking hands against the pavement, trying to rise, but the weight of guilt crushed him harder than gravity ever could. His voice broke into a whisper meant only for Marcus, though the crowd leaned in to hear. Why are you here now?" Marcus didn't blink, didn't flinch. He just held up the photo again, his deep brown eyes burning with both pain and truth, to remind you that you can't outrun the past. The crowd gasped. Cameras zoomed closer. Richard's empire of arrogance was crumbling in real time. But what Marcus said next would shatter it completely. The billionaire's chest heaved as he clutched the sidewalk, staring at the man who once called him brother. The photo trembled between Marcus's fingers, but his voice was steady. "You want to know what you did?" Marcus said, his words cutting sharper than any blade. The crowd leaned in closer, hungry for every word. "You stood there, Richard. You stood there when they told me my kind wasn't welcome in your father's business. You said nothing when they threw me out like garbage. You stayed silent when the doors opened for you, but slammed shut on me. And when I called for you..." Marcus's eyes glistened, but he didn't look away. "You walked away." Richard's throat burned. His lips parted, but no words came. His empire, his money, his power, none of it could shield him from the truth echoing through the streets. "I lost everything," Marcus continued. "My future, my family, and you." He raised the photo higher. "You erased me, pretended I never existed. But I never forgot Richard. I carried this photo because it's the proof that once you were human, once you cared, and then greed turned you into a ghost." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Some booed the billionaire. Others whispered, "Is it true?" Richard's eyes filled with tears he hadn't shed in decades. His voice cracked as he whispered, "Marcus, I..." But Marcus cut him off, his voice rising, steady and unshakable. "You don't get to apologize now. You don't get to buy forgiveness. You built your empire on silence. And silence is what you'll carry for the rest of your life." The crowd erupted. Phones flashed. For the first time, Richard Harrington, the untouchable billionaire, looked small, fragile, and powerless. And Marcus? He wasn't just a beggar anymore. He was truth, justice, and memory incarnate. The photo slipped from his hand, landing between them like a verdict neither could escape. The photo lay on the sidewalk, its edges curling in the hot city air. Cameras clicked, phones recorded, and in that single moment, the mighty billionaire Richard Harrington was no longer in control of the narrative. The world had seen. Marcus stood tall, his ragged clothes whispering of nights slept on benches and days spent searching trash bins. But his presence was larger than life. "You spent decades pretending the past didn't matter," Marcus declared, his voice echoing off the glass towers. "But the past always finds its way back." Richard's security team pushed forward, but the crowd blocked them. People surrounded Marcus, forming a wall of protection he had never known before. Strangers, young, old, black, white, all united, refusing to let him be silenced again. And then the first chant began. "Marcus, Marcus, Marcus." The name thundered like a drumbeat, rising higher and louder until even the billionaire's guards froze, unsure what to do. Richard trembled. His billion-dollar empire suddenly felt like sand slipping through his fingers. His knees buckled, and he fell again, not from shock this time, but from shame. "Please," he whispered, his voice breaking. "Please, Marcus, tell me what I can do." Marcus stepped closer, his shadow stretching over the man who once turned his back. He bent down, locking eyes with him. "You can't buy redemption," Marcus said softly, "but you can face the truth. Stand before the world and admit what you did. Admit that the system you inherited, the one you protected, was built on silencing men like me." Richard's lips trembled. The cameras leaned closer. The billionaire who once commanded boardrooms now sat on the sidewalk, the weight of his sins pressing down. And for the first time in his life, he told the truth. With tears streaking down his face, Richard confessed. Every silence, every betrayal, every dollar built on injustice. The world gasped, recorded, uploaded, and within minutes, his downfall went viral. But the story wasn't about Richard anymore. It was about Marcus, the man who had been discarded, ignored, erased, now standing tall as living proof that truth cannot be buried. The crowd erupted, not just in anger, but in hope. Hope that even the voiceless could shake the powerful. Hope that a photo in a beggar's hand could rewrite history. And as the sun dipped behind the skyscrapers, Marcus turned away, leaving Richard Harrington kneeling on the concrete, surrounded by the echoes of his own confession. The world would never forget what happened that day. Because sometimes the richest man in the city has nothing left, and the poorest man carries everything.